my guidance, nature, prakrti, gives birth to all things, moving and unmoving, and by this means, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, the world revolves. If God had no interest in the world, is unattached and is seated above as an indifferent, then how can this world work? As an answer to this question, Shri Krishna says that it is all done under his guidance. Ramanujacharya defines this as Adhyakshina Kshita Satya Sankalpena, under my supervision and through my will. Under God's supervision and through God's will. God has a will and the world is created. This is how the world runs. In the Shvetashvatara Upanishad there is a very beautiful mantra. Eko deva sarva bhuteshu buddha sarva vyapi sarva bhuta taratma karma adhyaksha sarva bhuta divasa sakshi cheta kevalon nigurnascha. There is the same one God in all creatures. This God is omnipresent and hidden in creatures. Everything in the world can only happen with God's presence. God is a witness, absolute consciousness, pure and beyond the dualities. When you go to any meeting, then you see what the chairperson does. A person had a secretary for many years. I asked her that she has been a secretary in this organization for many years, so why does she not advance and become a chairman president? She said that there will be no fun in this because the secretary does everything and the chairman is just a figurehead. She said that the chairman does not have that much power, signs everything, whereas the secretary performs all the work. She said that the secretary decides everything and the chairman just signs. Thanks so much. Everybody else runs around, but God is sitting there as the president, and everything can only be done with God's presence. We say that the sun rises and the garden blooms. Does the sun go to bloom each and every flower in each and every garden? The sun comes and all of these bloom by themselves. When the sun rises, then human beings get up in the morning by themselves. The sun does not go and knock on every door to tell people to get up. As soon as the sun comes, then all of this happens by itself. This is God's competence. This is God's ability. Everything can only happen under God as president. God's mere presence is enough. In the olden days, when children were in the class and they knew that the principal was coming, then the whole class would go silent. But if the principal went inside the classroom and said, "I'm the principal, so be silent," then would this have any meaning? A true principal would have this aura of making the class go silent automatically. In the same way, the Supreme Soul is such that everything can only happen with the Supreme Soul's presence. All Acharya's teachers agree that the Supreme Soul is Cheta, absolute consciousness. Cheta yati iti Cheta. No matter how opposed person is to another, they all agree that the Supreme Soul gives power and consciousness. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad is indeed very beautiful. Shri Krishna says the word Adhyaksha, which has two meanings that depend on how you say it. The first, if you spell it, is Adi, meaning a fool in Sanskrit, and Aksha, meaning a person who keeps an eye on someone. Therefore, Adhyaksha can mean somebody who keeps his eye on fools. When one says with pride that we have Sabadhyaksha, control of the people, then it means that the person is a fool because one needs to be controlled and someone needs to do the controlling by saying order, order, in case someone is naughty and someone starts jumping up and down. This is Adhyaksha. The world is running and there are some fools in this world that keep doing the wrong things, and as soon as God tells them to come towards him, then they just run away. That is why an Adhyaksha is needed. But we will not take this meaning. We will take the second meaning of Adhyaksha, which is Adi Adhikam Aksha Asanam Yasya, which means someone who has a high and superior seat. This protocol has been preserved even today. A president always has a higher seat. God is sitting above everyone else. What I mean to say is that the individual is ignorant and the Supreme Soul is all-knowing, and that is why the Supreme Soul runs this universe. Thinkers put it very nicely that we say that God created the universe, but this is an activity just like a potter creates pots out of clay. God does not create the universe like this. What the Gita says is that God did not create the universe, but the universe was created with God's presence. God is not a creator, God is a creativity. God does not sit and create the world, but everything moving and unmoving that has been created is because of God. Charati iti charam, na charati iti acharam, charta acharam iti charcha, chare chara, charabhyam sarvat tamam acharat tat. Shri Krishna also says the word suyate, and this word is worth understanding. Suyate has two meanings. Srimad Adi Shankaracharya says very clearly that this is suyate utpaditi, to give birth and to create. The first meaning is to give birth, and the second meaning is to obtain prosperity. In both these meanings, under the guidance of the Supreme Soul, nature is created, nature creates other things, and nature attains prosperity. This is all under the guidance of God. Wherever there is creation, then the Supreme Soul will be closer to it. If a flower blooms or lotus opens up, then understand that the sun is close by. The sun must have come, otherwise the flower would not bloom and the lotus would not open up. In the same way, wherever there is creation, the Supreme Soul is close by. If you want to see God, then the Supreme Soul shows us one way here. Wherever there is creativity, one will naturally be able to see God. Go and sit by the sea. You see that something is happening continuously, and it is natural to be able to see God there. Look at the sun rising, and you will feel that God is very close. One person asked why women are more religious than men, and Guruji immediately gave the answer, is that the reason why women are more religious is that women go through the experience of becoming mothers. Once one gets the experience of motherhood, then the Supreme Soul is very close to her. This is because the woman goes through the activity of creation herself. You see in the world that there are very few atheist women. There are more atheist men than women, and by atheist I don't mean in relation to God. A person who has feelings is a believer, and a person who is without feelings is an atheist. Women are full of feelings because they are close to the activity of creation. Women pass through the whole process. I've never yet met an atheist woman or a woman without feelings. Men come and ask whether God is there or not, and children come and ask whether God is there or not. But a young daughter, a daughter or a woman has never asked me whether God is there or not. Why? Because women are close to the activity of creation. If I were to go further, then in nature, the activity of creation is always happening. The closer that the person is to the activity of creation, then the more religious that the person is. That is why in ancient times our rishis said that if one wished to perform penances, that they should go to the jungle. Nowadays people stay in the cities and there's a problem of traffic and pollution, and therefore if someone said that we could get peace by going to the jungle, then we'd understand it. But the towns in ancient times had a lot of peace in them, and yet the rishis said to go to the jungle, because when you go to the jungle, then you're very close to the activity of creation. When you are that close, then you'll be able to see God. Feelings are reducing in today's children. Faith in God is reducing in today's children. Thinkers give a very good reason for this. They say that the children of today are getting further and further away from nature. If you go to a school today and ask the children how many of them have seen a cow, then they say they may have seen a cow on a photo or television, but most, if not all of them, will never have seen a cow and will never have touched a cow, unless at the Krishna Avanti school. As soon as you take a child living in the city near a cow, then the child will start screaming. If this child becomes irreligious and without faith, then what new is there in this? Most, if not all of these children, will never have given water to a plant. Think about our children or the children in our houses. The boy turns 12 or the girl turns 18, but if you ask either of them whether they've given water to a plant, whether they've touched a plant, whether they've had dearness to a plant, then if they have, then the child will have feelings because the child will be close to nature. When a child turns 15, and you ask the child whether the child has ever seen the sun rising, or whether in those 15 years a child has spent even 1 hour sitting quietly watching the sea without making sandcastles or eating popcorn, just 1 hour of the child and the sea, then if the child can remain irreligious after doing this, then I'm not prepared to believe it. If a person is close to nature and the activity of creation, then they will have feelings and will automatically become religious. What is happening today is that people are letting go of nature. There is so much distance from creation and life, and the further away from creation a person is becoming, then the further that the person is going away from the Supreme Soul. That is why the Supreme Soul cannot be seen. That is why faith is reducing in society. I like the word suyate very much. It is like nature is a mother and creating everything. The word suyate has the feeling of motherhood because the mother creates. There are so many words in Sanskrit for creation such as sarjan, but Shri Krishna did not use those words. We are coming to this world under a feeling of suyate. The Supreme Soul is our mother and has created us with this feeling. The Supreme Soul has not sent us here under a punishment. Everything that is here in this world has been created with the Supreme Soul's feelings of motherhood. The second feeling of suyate is to attain wealth. The Supreme Soul has sent us here so that we can be successful and so that we can be greater than we were at the time of birth and not for destruction. That is the reason for which the world was created. Shri Krishna says the word viparivartate. One part of this word, parivartate, has a beautiful meaning that this world keeps changing. Vishesham parivartate iti viparivartate. Shri Krishna also says vivartate, which has a philosophical meaning behind it on the Sanskrit, and it is that it appears and it is not there already. A fog appears in the air. On the film screen at the cinema, the film appears. Parivartate means that it comes and goes, and vivartate means that it appears, and Shri Krishna made a word out of these two, viparivartate, to show that it looks as if everything in the world is changing, but nothing in the world is changing. Everything in the world is the same. Waves come into the sea, and we think that the sea is not the same for even a moment and keeps changing all the time, because as soon as one wave goes, another wave comes, and this keeps happening. Because these waves come, it does not mean that the sea is changing. The water remains the same. When the waves stop, then everything becomes calm, but no change happens to the sea. The sea does not change. In the same way, everything comes and goes in the material world, but the sea of the material world remains the same. That which feels as if it is changing is only appearing. The Supreme Soul is just present in all this. If I were to say in scientific language, then the Supreme Soul is a catalyst. There's a reason why the Supreme Soul cannot be seen in this world, and that it is nature that creates everything. If the Supreme Soul were creating anything, then we will be able to see the Supreme Soul. It is happening under the presence of the Supreme Soul. I learnt during my study of science that water is made out of hydrogen and oxygen. But what is not created when both of these combine? What is not created when both these combine? Electricity. Water is not made when both these combine. Electricity is needed as a catalyst. If you try to hydrate water, then you get hydrogen and oxygen, but you do not get electricity, because electricity was a catalyst. Electricity was not inside the water. Shri Krishna says he is the catalyst. Nachasami bhutani and amteshu na avastitam. There is no electricity in water, but if there was no electricity, then water would not be able to be made. If you break water, then you will only get hydrogen and oxygen, but not electricity. The Supreme Soul is a catalyst. Thinkers say that the weakness of science is that it can never show God to a person, and only religion is able to give a person the vision of God. Science gives material comforts and everything else, but it does not enable a person to see God. There is a reason for this, and that is that science only looks at that which is created and looks for God in the world. The world is something that has been created. He who is there during the activity of creation of the world cannot be seen in the world after its creation. Through electricity, hydrogen and oxygen become water. If you try to look for electricity in water, then you will not be able to find it. In the same way, the Supreme Soul is present during the activity of creation, and if you look at creation, then you will be able to see the Supreme Soul. But after creation, you will not be able to see the Supreme Soul in this world. End of the verse.